overreact to the Eagles losing to Washington. Okay, Jalen Hurts, very early, got a concussion. It's not the same team. It's a great roster, but it is a quarterback league. And I'm not going to overreact because Jayden Daniels, as a rookie, threw 5 touchdown passes. The bigger story is why the NFL is king, because you get the right coach and the right rookie quarterback, you draft the right guy, and you can go from an NFL embarrassment for over a decade to the playoffs in 3 months. And that's what you're seeing. Jayden Daniels does not have a great roster. He's got one big-time weapon. But you can see some Lamar Jackson. You can see the poise. You could see 10 to 15 years of playoffs. I mean, I grew up, and they had a different name, but this was a great franchise. I've said before that the Washington football franchise reminds me of the Golden State Warriors. I grew up in the 70s, and Washington, the football team, and Golden State, the basketball team, had legendary players, and you could argue they had the best fan bases. But mismanagement or bad ownership, and the Warriors just sort of regress into irrelevant, even on the West Coast, and then it all turns around with Steph Curry. In Washington, the George Allen Washington team, 1972 Super Bowl, this Joe Gibbs. I mean, this was for a long time. This was tough and physical, and the Hogs. And then Dan Snyder, and as we always say on this show, ownership. Bad teams all have one thing in common, and it's not a bad coach, and it's not a bad quarterback. Cincinnati, I think, has a good coach and a great quarterback. It's usually upstairs. But all you need is the right coach and the right quarterback, and finally they got a bad owner out and a great owner in, and you're looking at playoffs. That final drive, what was great about that, not just the 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns by Jayden Daniels. He threw a pick on the previous drive. So what? Unfazed. Cut it loose. Didn't care. Very Andrew Luck. Very short memory. And this rookie quarterback class, by the way, we may have 5 for 5. I watched Penix this weekend. That dude's good. So obviously the Jalen Hurts concussion can change the outcome. But here's what's amazing about this kid. And I've said this before. The difference between the haves and the have-nots at quarterbacks. When are you good? Okay, when are you good? Do you lose a left tackle, Sam Darnold? You go 8-0. It can't just be when everything's great. When are you good? This kid has a 106 passer rating while trailing. That's like GOAT stuff. Okay, that's Mahomes early. Mahomes was better trailing. You could never tell if Mahomes was leading or trailing. You could never tell. A lot of quarterbacks in this league with protection, they're leading. They all look great thrown on 2nd and 2. Jayden Daniels has a good O-line. It's better. They got Cliff Kingsbury and the offensive staff have done a nice job. It's a better O-line, top 7 or 8. It's not Detroit. It's not Philly. It's probably not Atlanta, but it's good. But he's got a great passer rating trailing and 115 passer rating in the 4th quarter. That is unheard of for a rookie. Those numbers, this is not September. We're not early October. We're now late December. Like, that's who the kid is. And this is probably the worst roster he plays with, at least while he's on his rookie contract, right? And once they pay him the big money, you got to make concessions. But for the next 2 to 3 years, he's not making any money. So this roster's only going to get better. This kid is nails, 4th quarter, trailing. And I know Jalen Hurts was out. But if you're doing things now in late December, in chilly weather, against the number 1 defense in the league and driving down, that last drive was art, baby. That's what the great ones look like. That is GOAT stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, the most clear thing is that Jayden Daniels is a top 5 quarterback. That's the obvious thing. That's what the biggest takeaway is that Jayden Daniels is on path to be a no-doubter top quarterback. Like when we say Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, like no one in their right mind doubts those quarterbacks. They are the no-doubters top quarterbacks in the NFL. Now everyone always wants to kind of fight who's number 1, who's 2, who's 3, and then you have obviously down to 10, and people kind of fight that order. Jayden Daniels will be a no-doubter top quarterback in the NFL. Now, where he ends up in that's for the next couple of years to figure out. But I mean, he's unbelievable. He is unreal. He is just he's special. That's why Colin's saying, like, that's GOAT stuff. What he's doing is truly, truly, truly special. He's obviously rookie of the year right now. It would take him to fumble, not obviously fumble, but, you know, fumble the last couple of games and have Bo Nix play out of his mind. But it's like, who really knows if we'll even have that opportunity, because I don't know how hard the Kansas City Chiefs will even be playing that final game, if they need it or don't. So it'll depend. But I mean, rookie of the year. And yeah, this team isn't that great. I mean, listen, we got to be honest. That game was not the best game out there in terms of how the Commanders played. 5 turnovers, really, really bad penalties. It was against a backup quarterback. You have to acknowledge that as a Washington Commanders fan. The score was 36-33 against Kenny Pickett. The offense completely changed for the Philadelphia Eagles when Jalen Hurts went down, and then the defense even completely changed for the Commanders. But that's smart coaching by Dan Quinn and that defense. That's what it's like when you have a well-run organization. They know how to adjust. They know how to make changes. But the run game, they had like one more big run play. I mean, it was a big run play, like 60-plus yards from Saquon after Jalen went down. But after that, it was nothing. It was non-existent. And a big reason for that is, yes, some adjustments from the Commanders' defense, but also Jalen Hurts. Because the biggest reason why that run game and that O-line is so good is because Jalen Hurts can run himself, throw, or hand the ball. That's why they have the RRPO. Like, that's what makes this team so much more deadly than not. I mean, it's really like, well, everyone kind of said when Jayden Daniels was banged up, this team wasn't that good. And that was true. That's very true. And now what happens when you take away the Eagles quarterback completely? Well, they're obviously not going to be that good. Not to mention, Jayden Daniels did throw that really bad interception, which should have ended the game, essentially. But then they had Devontae Smith drop the easiest ball wide open. Like, you have to be honest of those things when evaluating your team. Now, on the flip side, you could say, yeah, but there were some bad penalty calls, and it's like, which was true, but then there was also bad penalty calls against the Eagles, like the Jalen Carter that was not roughing the passer, and then the other unsportsmanlike conduct when, like, they were kind of like in the pile a little bit, and he kind of like gently pushed him, and I forget who it was, fell back. Like, it's, you know, it's kind of a whole little weird thing. And then having, you know, CJ Gardner and Johnson get thrown out. Like, that's why this was a bizarre game. But all those turnovers, the one positive about all those turnovers, especially the fumbles, it feels like one of those, like, freak games. Like, the interceptions were just like, hey, you know, Jayden, what were you seeing? That's a bad throw. It was just a bad throw, sad on you. Or, hey, man, I know where you were looking to go with that, but, like, you're not going to be able to make that throw. So don't make that throw. But like some of the fumbles, sometimes fumbles really just feel fluky. And it's not like a fundamental problem. It's just that you're going to have to fumble the ball in the NFL. It's going to happen. It's guaranteed. Just like a quarterback is guaranteed to throw an interception. It has to come. It has to come. And so it just seems like maybe like all of that came in that game yesterday. So I'm almost like when a team loses or it's a close game or whatever it may be, but there's a lot of turnovers that don't feel like it's the identity of the team or the player, I'm kind of like more forgiving because I'm just like, just one of those games, man, where you're just going to keep fumbling it there. For whatever reason, that's what the football gods are saying. You're just going to keep fumbling the ball because the odds of that happening in the playoffs or happening again, even just statistically, are slim to none. Again, if you have a quarterback who keeps throwing interceptions, then that's potentially like a legitimate problem, right? Then you're like, well, why are you throwing these interceptions? Are you an inconsistent thrower? Are you just making bad throws, bad reads? Do you not know how to read defenses? Or defenses confusing you consistent? You know what I mean? So that's why I'm almost less concerned about that. And in a lot of ways, it's almost kind of good because the Commanders played bizarrely weird with all those turnovers, and the Eagles didn't have Jalen Hurts. So in a lot of ways, this is not the game. There's like not a lot of takeaways from this game for either team, except Jayden Daniels and just what he was able to do. Because again, we have the stats: 24 for 39, 258 yards, 5 touchdowns, 99 rating, 9 carries for 82 yards, 3 for 4 in the red zone. But like I wrote in my notes, more about the future and the composure of Jayden Daniels. Short-term memory after bad interception, fearless, makes big plays when needed, also using his legs. But then I wrote, but game was a mess. That's funny. But game itself was a mess. I take these notes like yesterday, in real time when I'm watching this game. And that was really my takeaway. Because I was like, how am I going to come on here and make a video about this? Because I know a lot of commanders or fans are wanting me to be like, that was a big win. That was this, that was that. But to me, I always have to be honest about the evaluation. And you guys know I've been super high on this team throughout the whole season. This was an important win to have and a resilient win to have. But for the team itself, if you're really going to look at this through neutral eyes, like it was a bizarre win. You can't really classify it as a great win. This was closer to the Hail Mary than not. And not because it came down to a final drive, because that final drive was unbelievable. And again, you're going up against the top Eagles defense. Again, that's the special of Jayden Daniels. That's true. I mean, he made some throws that were just breathtaking. The 50-yarder to Brown, the touchdown, the 32-yarder to McLaurin. I mean, like, just beautiful touch. The one play when it was 4th and 11, he needed a 30-yard scramble, which then leads to the touchdown. I mean, like, those are all big time. Like, those individual plays were all big time. Big time, big time, big time. That's what I'm saying. Jayden Daniels will be a top quarterback in the NFL. He's better than Lamar Jackson was his rookie year. And it's not even close. Just his ability to pass the ball, the way he throws the ball is just so beautiful. Take away his legs and he will still be a top quarterback. I mean, he's magnificent, truly. But that's why I'm like kind of in two worlds here, where I'm like evaluating Jayden Daniels as well as then the Commanders, and the Commanders team itself this season. And yeah, it was like I said, in terms of like the game itself, except for Jayden Daniels, there's not a ton of takeaways because the penalties were a mess on both sides, for that matter. The starting quarterback going down for the other team, it's like when that happens, I hope you win. You better win. You're going up against Kenny Pickett right now, who played pretty well and not terrible, but clearly not Jalen Hurts in that offense. And you turned the ball over 5 times. I mean, that's a lot of turnovers. Throwing an interception in what should have been your final drive. Saquon Barkley dropping the ball. Devontae Smith dropping the ball. It's kind of very similar to what happened with the Atlanta Falcons, where it was an unbelievable drive coming back with Kirk Cousins in that final drive to win the game. Right, and deserves all the credit for leading that game-winning drive. All the credit, 100% all the credit. But also, that drive should have never happened because it hit Saquon Barkley in the hands to ice the game, and he just dropped it. So it's like you can be like, that's awesome that we have a team and a quarterback and a coach that can lead us to victory, but also recognize we were fortunate and lucky to even be in that situation in the first place. So it's like, again, always try to look at things from a 360 degrees. But Colin said this is the worst that this team will be with Jayden Daniels. And the reality is that this is the worst Jayden Daniels will be with the worst team that he technically has. I mean, think about that. Not only is Jayden Daniels going to be a better quarterback individually, which would elevate this team, the team's going to be better as well. I mean, you have to imagine if they get lucky in the draft, which there's always luck involved in the draft. They get lucky in the draft, can get lucky in free agency and be fortunate, make some good decisions. It's always a balance between luck and just great decisions, because it's going to be like, who's available and all that. This team has to be another. You're going to have to give it, again, also luck with health. Give it another 2 wins, maybe 3. I mean, like, the Commanders will be a legitimate top team in the NFL, and I guarantee going into this season, people will be talking about, when we're having those conversations, because we have nothing else to talk about in like April. People will be like, I think the Commanders are going to be a top 4 team this going into this season, and Jayden Daniels will be an MVP candidate. Will win an MVP. Like, I guarantee you, it's the same things that everyone said about C.J. Stroud and Jordan Love going into this season, and the Texans and the Packers. And I think it'll be even louder for the Commanders and Jayden Daniels, honestly. I really do. Because I just think what Jayden is doing is absolutely special and just, you know, just awesome to watch, honestly. Just awesome to watch. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders? Do you think Jayden Daniels is legitimately doing GOAT stuff? And how far do you think this team can go this season? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here. I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.